Hi, Steve Hayes here. I'd just like to give my welcome to you at this first all ACT and RFT conference there in Poland. I'm excited to see what's happening in Poland and the increasing number of professionals and also translations and articles and clinical efforts, basic efforts as well, to build the contextual behavioral science community there. I'm sitting here on a kind of a cool spring day at Reno, Nevada. Here, I'll show you where I am. I'm looking out at kind of a nice view in my living room. There's where I am, if you're gonna. And I know that this is being played far away, but in a way it's not far away because the ACT, RFT, CBS community is really an integrated worldwide effort to do something special. What we're trying to do is to bring this analytic, networked, basic and applied science-oriented functional contextual perspective into all of the problem areas that we can think of. Clinical issues, but not just that, policy issues, prevention issues, children, adults, behavioral health, organizations, communities. And that's not actually a new vision. It's an old vision. It's the vision that animated the earliest, I think, evidence-based therapies in behavior therapy. I kind of was socialized to a perspective as a young student and then a young professional, and the idea that what we really wanted to do was to develop highly refined, high precision, high scope principles that would allow us to take the behavioral sciences and psychology into the most complex kinds of human behavior. The little phrase that's in my thinking is from rats to Walden 2. And it was Walden 2 that really brought me into behavioral thinking, the idea, not that, Skinner had it right about how to organize our communities or families. He undoubtedly didn't have it right. But just that he was willing to try, that he was concerned about that. And that connected, in my thinking, in my heart, up to things like the more humanistic, existential, positive psychology, growth-oriented, Maslow, Rogers, etc. wing, but in a way that gave us more refined principles that would make that effort possibly progressive. And so here we are, decades later in terms of my personal journey, but many thousands of people now re-examining that original vision. What stopped it originally, didn't stop it, but slowed it down maybe, was a couple of things. One is you have to deal with human language and cognition in a way that really gives you leverage over those processes, and the traditional behavioral thinking just didn't do that. Another was, frankly, the contamination of evolutionary thinking due to what happened during the Second World War, and the idea that any kind of deliberate attempt to do things that would make a social difference was going to be linked to oppressive kinds of policies or to people dying and being objectified and dehumanized. It was that combination of factors that made us, I think, as a world culture, feel as though the behavioral scientists couldn't be trusted to step into the fray in terms of helping to come up with a vision for how to link science to a more progressive world community. And what happened instead, I think, is that we went through an era of evidence-based work being mostly linked to the syndromization and medicalization of human suffering on the one hand, or even human prosperity on the other. Where we are right now, I think, is people are looking afresh at this idea that there's a different vision possible for evidence-based therapies and for the role of behavioral science in the pro-social development of the world. Evidence-based therapies, I think, are now passing through the ends of a protocol for syndrome era, as even the NIMH has stopped funding studies that are primarily driven by that. And instead, I think what we're coming back to is an old vision, but with a new face on it, of evidence-based processes linked to evidence-based procedures, and a kind of functional analytic attempt to understand how those can be used to solve the problems of people and to foster their prosperity. That kind of more person-specific and context-specific application of evidence-based principles, it gives us an exciting way forward that doesn't have the same risk of objectification and dehumanization, of putting all human suffering into little cubby holes and labels, and instead gives us a psychology of the normal that is able to apply to our clients, but not just to our clients, but also to ourselves, to our clinics, to our homes, to our schools, and to our communities. A few thoughts I have just as you begin to create a bit of community around these kinds of issues in Poland. One is that because this model is based on a psychology of the normal, we have to make sure... Well, that's my doggy wog. Hang on a second. Let's see what's going on. We're going to have to edit this out, Bartos, undoubtedly. Oh, Dio, stop it. Come on, that's just Marisa. Stop it. Shh, shh. You know Marisa. For goodness sakes. No. Our housekeeper has shown up. I think I better finish this a little later. I'm going to stop it right there. Well, I've changed venues. I'm here in my office at the University of Nevada. I got driven out of the home environment by my dog and the housekeeper. Where I stopped is I wanted to just say a few things about the community itself as you, in Poland, begin to develop the ACBS chapter there and the sense of community. By the time you're having conferences, you're well on your way to doing exactly that. I think that we've done well as a community because we've brought these psychological flexibility processes into the organizations themselves. And so we've done conscious work on being accepting and open towards others and their ideas, and be less certain about exactly how we're going to address these issues of human complexity. We tried to take the perspective of others, so when people come in contact with the work from the point of view of analytic thinking or existential thinking or humanistic thinking or traditional CBT or any one of the other many approaches out there, that we've been welcoming and tried to listen as well as speak. Early on, when particular language communities form into a group, it's very common to have people jockeying for a position. It's very human, but it's also very unnecessary. all boats rise when the entire community is doing better. And so I would encourage people to focus also on the values part. What are we actually working together for? It's not about money and fame. It's about doing things that make a difference in the lives of others. And in the same way as trying to scale these flexibility processes into organizations, ACT therapists, I think, have gone a long way by taking time to apply these processes to themselves and to be less focused just on how to help clients see things in a particular way, and more focused on how to embody the spirit of these flexibility processes in our own hearts and minds, and then in our consulting rooms, so that we're better able to model, instigate, and support those processes in the lives of others, because we know something about how they're important to us. And there's evidence now on that you get not just better outcomes, but also you're more willing to use the things that are needed when you yourself are working on these flexibility processes as a therapist. So my advice to you in terms of how to develop your own work is to, start with your own heart and really look at these processes of opening up as they apply to you, and then to scale that into your clinics and professional organizations, and all the way up into the work that we're doing together as a worldwide community. I don't think really what we're about is to try to declare ACT the victor in these kinds of intellectual and practical kinds of struggles. That's not the issue. All scientific theories are wrong. We just don't know where they are wrong yet. Given enough time, they'll be found to be wrong, and I presume that's true of our own ideas. Why wouldn't it be? So we can come into this with a sense of community and humility and focused on valued purposes, and try to create a psychology more worthy of the challenge of the human condition. I mean, that's a process that is probably hundreds of years long, and it's not going to be achieved anytime soon, but we can care about it, make progress on it even now. So congratulations on your meeting, and I hope the TED Talk that you just looked at was of some use to you, but I really hope that you'll look at how you can come together to support each other and exploring the relevance of these psychological flexibility processes for your own lives and for the lives of those that you serve.